If there are any questions, ask them now. If John? Yes.
What state was the United Kingdom in at the time?
What state was the United Kingdom in the 9th century? John, will I ask for questions? He never got to the United Kingdom. Nobody's ever said that. He was a continental European monk. One way of answering that would be to say that Patrick had evangelized Ireland in the 5th century, although Patrick wasn't the first, and the Irish church was strong, although John Scotus Erigena was a total heretic, the Irish monk. And also many of these monasteries in Europe were actually founded by Irish monks. Then we could also point to the great Alcuin, the Alcuin of York, who was the leading educator and theologian in the court of Charlemagne. And he was an Englishman. So there were various connections between the two and a lot of learning in the British Isles at that stage, but nothing really connecting Gottschalk to the British Isles. Anything else?
You were saying there he was a little bit faulty with the Trinity.
Yes. Bobby, you picked that one up. That's the one question I didn't really care to answer too much about because I'm bothered by it. He used a Latin phrase. What was it? Trinas deitas. My Latin, I don't know Latin, but I'm trying to remember it. And then he defended it, and various people charged him with error. Other people defended him. My difficulty is that this book, my main source, I read various other stuff, but it's hard to get something that deals much with Gottschalk apart from a few pages here and there. This book doesn't really get into his views on the Trinity. It just refers to it. But what I do find interesting was that he adopted this strange phrase from a hymn. It was used in some hymn that he liked. And the next thing he said, this phrase can be understood in an orthodox, and then he got himself into, it seemed to me, a bit of a hole, and then he thrashed about in it. But you have several difficulties. One is not that much material that I personally have. Then second, it's in Latin, and then there's claim and counterclaim. But from what little I've read, God is three in persons and one in being. And Gottschalk seemed to be saying that God was in some sense or other, this is where the ambiguity comes in, three in his being. And that isn't correct, but if Gottschalk were here, he would probably stand up and he'd say, no, I would put it this way, and so forth. And that's why it gets a real issue about words and sense. Yeah. Sorry, Philip, you had...
Thinking about his own personal salvation, did he leave any confession behind as did St. Patrick? These things that he held to in relation to the sovereignty of God, whilst they're very credible, how do we know he wasn't just simply an intellectual Roman Catholic who held some parts of the truth and may not actually have had a relationship with Jesus Christ himself?
Gottschalk wrote two books which he called a confession. Augustine did, and so did Patrick, as you say. His confession was a confession of the truth in the area of predestination for which he was being charged in a church court. He didn't write a life or biography, unlike Patrick or Augustine. But I'll read you key bits here from his shorter confession. This is how the shorter confession ends. I believe and confess in every respect with these elect of God and Catholics, as I am helped, inspired, animated, and armed by God. Here's how he begins his longer confession. Master, Lord, my God, my mercy, all-powerful King, incomparably clement, and also patient with inestimable kindness toward the human race, and deeply wise with unsearchable depth, whom all of your elect truly always need. And I could continue. And then he speaks about the difficult persecutions he endures and how he perseveres because he lives in the fear of God and he does not want to deny Christ, because those who deny him, God will deny. His writings are actually very moving. There's a real Augustinian piety in them. So he's not simply an intellectual. He was a believer who was intellectual and used logic and the church fathers and solid exegesis of Scripture, but he was a pious man.